30-day solo podcast challenge. We're on day 8. Just look at you. 1 week down, 3 to go. I'm David Hooper from BigPodcast.com. My job is to help you grow a big podcast audience. This series will help you to do that and more. One of the things we're going to work on is clarifying your message. Solo podcasting puts you out front. It puts your message out front. No longer will you have to bow down to the whims of co-hosts or the needs of guests. We're going to make it all about you, giving you maximum flexibility. You can release your podcast when you want. You can change things up when you want. And you can keep all the money. If you haven't done this already, listen to the intro episode first. This explains the what and why of everything happening here. To do that, go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe. You will get the intro episode. You'll get the previous episodes that we've done, days 1 through 7. And you'll continue with me for the next 3 weeks, getting all 30 days of the 30-day solo podcast challenge. Previously, on day number 7, we talked about false beliefs. All listeners, all audiences have these false beliefs about what you're talking about. They don't know something, and it is up to you and me as host to set them straight. The false belief that I talked about, because the topic is podcasting, is the belief that bigger equals better. Today, the focus is sharing your message via a story. And the exercise for today, I'm going to have you share that message via an answer to a very specific story. Here's the task. I want you to tell me about a book that has been very important to you. But beyond that, I want you to tell me the story around that book. Let me give you an example. When I was 16 years old, I had a friend of mine. I'd grown up with him. We were 5 days apart. Our parents knew each other in college. This guy is the closest thing to a brother that I have. So he comes over. It's a cold day, and he's in this super cool cashmere coat. It's a full-length coat, looked like something a businessman would wear. In fact, it looked like something a rich businessman would wear. But we both worked at Baskin-Robbins, the ice cream store. And I asked him, I said, hey, where'd you get that coat? And he said, my grandfather gave it to me. And his grandfather, speaking of rich men, was an executive at a place called Genesco Shoes. And you might not have heard of Genesco, but they make all sorts of different brands of dress shoes for men. Maybe for women, I don't know. But I know them for their men's brands. Cole Haan, you've heard of these brands. Really nice dress shoes. This guy was an executive with the company. He'd been with them for dozens of years. He was high up, and this is how he dressed. He would wear these nice coats. He'd always have a suit. He drove a Cadillac. He was probably born in the 20s, one of those old school businessmen. And then my friend said, but I had to read a book to get it. I said, a book, huh? He had his grandfather in his life, and he gave him this book called As a Man Thinketh. And my friend's telling me about it. He said, yeah, it's really small. And it was really small. I saw it. It was like, I don't know, 3 inches by 4 inches, like a super small book, maybe 30, 40 pages. I don't know. And my friend goes, it's a good book. We went on our way that day. I didn't think anything more of it until I saw my friend the next time. He said, hey, I told my grandfather you asked about this coat. He says he's got one for you, but you got to read that book. So that's how I got myself a cashmere coat when I was 16. Did I read the book? I did not. Not when I was 16. I felt so badly about it, though. I did eventually read that book later, and that got me into some other stuff like Earl Nightingale. You might have heard me talk about Earl Nightingale on my podcast before. A well-known broadcaster. Some of the kind of, let's call it personal development, positive thinking kind of stuff. Think and Grow Rich, if you've heard of that book, Napoleon Hill, that is a very similar book. I can't say that As a Man Thinketh was something I eventually really connected to. It's an old language. I can sum it up to you in one sentence. Whatever you think about is what you become. There's the book. You don't even have to read the 30 or 40 pages that it is. But I can say that having that experience of having some guy who thought it was important and some guy who lived his life around that philosophy and watching him as a mentor and having him pass that book on to me did affect me because it started the process. It was the domino and everything else behind that, all those other dominoes, that fell. So I want you, this is your action for today, I want you to tell me a similar story. I want you to tell me about a book you have read that changed your perspective, or a book you have read that exemplifies the philosophy and what it is that you talk about and who you are. So here's the action step. I want you to get a pen and paper. I want you to outline your episode with 3 things. There's always the beginning, the middle, and the end, because the stories you tell in your podcast, they need to have that linear element to it. It needs to start somewhere, take your listeners on a journey, and end somewhere where the person listening feels like they've had a complete experience. The intro is the lead up to how you found out about that book. Where were you? What were you doing? For me, I was a 16-year-old kid. I was hanging out with my buddy. I noticed he had this cool coat. That started the conversation. Then there's the meat, how you actually got the book, who presented it to you, what that person was like. And then the wrap up, what happened afterwards, after you read it. How did your life change? Did your life change? Maybe it stayed the same. Maybe it got worse. I don't know. But wrap it up. What happened because of that book? As I've been saying throughout this process, stories are important. So add stories where you can. Add descriptions. Bring these characters to life. What did I tell you about my friend? We're two 16-year-old kids. We've grown up together. We're 5 days apart. We don't have any money. We're working at Baskin-Robbins. How about the mentor who came in? The grandfather, old school, executive, dressed nicely, Cadillac car. Bring these stories in, bring these descriptions in to bring what you're talking about to life. You're going to outline it, the beginning, the middle, and the end. Don't overthink it. 3 to 5 minutes. You're going to hit record. You're going to go for it. Once you edit it, take out all the mistakes, upload it. I want you to send it to me. The way to reach me, bigpodcast.com. If you want to go through Twitter, that's an option. @David Hooper is my username. That is it for today. Tell me about a book that has changed your life or otherwise influenced you. And right now, before you forget, before you hit record and start telling me that story, I want you to do this. I want you to go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Subscribe to this podcast. That way you will not miss what's coming up. You'll be able to go back and follow me from day 1 all the way through day 30. This isn't just random stuff that I'm asking you. I'm taking you through a process. And when you are done with this process, you're going to be a smoother host. You're going to be able to tell better stories. People are going to get to know you better. They're going to be more attracted to you. You're going to be pre-selling anything that you're selling. And that could be something as simple as recommending the book you're talking about. Go into this link. What I'm saying is, when you tell these stories, when people get to know you, they're going to trust you. They're going to pay more attention. And even those little things that you're selling, click on this link, check out this book. People will pay more attention to those things. So go to bigpodcast.com/subscribe, download the entire process. And while you are there, I've got a free podcast toolkit for you. Get that too. I've got episode templates. I've got social media templates. I've got licensing contracts so you can use music in your podcast, bring it alive through music. All of it is there at bigpodcast.com/subscribe. Thank you for listening to the 30-Day Solo Podcast Challenge. I'll see you tomorrow on the next episode.